The school building was old, with pale walls that had seen many years of children passing through. Every morning, parents dropped their kids at the front gate, some rushing off to work, others stopping to wave. Among them was a single father who came every day with his little girl. He worked long hours at a small repair shop, but he always made sure to walk her to school before starting his shift. He did not have much money, but he had a big heart, and he believed being there for his child mattered more than anything. That morning, as he stood near the gate, he noticed a small girl sitting alone on a cold bench near the wall. She was not laughing or talking like the other kids. Her eyes were fixed on the ground. Her shoes looked too small, and her sweater was thin for the chilly air. Other children ran past her, but no one stopped to talk to her. To most people, she was just another quiet kid. But the single dad felt something was wrong. He watched her for a moment while holding his daughter's hand. His daughter waved at a friend and ran off, leaving him standing there. Still, his eyes stayed on the girl on the bench. There was a sadness in her face that felt too heavy for someone so young. It was not the kind of sadness that comes from a bad morning or a lost toy. It was deeper, like she had been carrying it for a long time. He tried to shake it off. He told himself not to stare. He had his own problems. Bills to pay. A child to raise alone. A small home that always felt too quiet at night. But something kept pulling his eyes back to her. When the bell rang and the children started walking inside, she was the last one to stand up. She moved slowly, like every step took effort. Later that day, after finishing his morning work at the shop, the single dad returned to the school to drop off a form his daughter had forgotten. As he walked down the hallway, he heard a soft sound, almost like someone trying not to cry. It came from near the water fountain. He stopped and listened. The sound grew clearer. It was the same girl. She was standing there, holding her face in her hands, trying to be quiet. Her shoulders shook as tears ran down her cheeks. He felt his chest tighten. He did not want to scare her, so he stayed a few steps away. "Hey," he said gently. "Are you okay?" She jumped a little, wiping her eyes quickly. She looked at him with fear, like she was worried she had done something wrong. He lowered himself to her level so he would not seem too big or scary. "I'm not here to get you in trouble," he said softly. "I just heard you crying. I wanted to see if you were okay." She shook her head but did not speak. Her lips trembled. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to, but sometimes it helps to talk." For a long moment, she stayed quiet. Then, in a small voice, she said, "I just feel tired." He nodded. "School can be tiring." She looked at the floor. Not just school. He could hear how heavy those words were. He did not push her. He just waited. After a few seconds, she took a deep breath. "I don't like going home," she whispered. That was all she said. But it was enough. Before he could respond, a teacher walked down the hallway and called her name. The girl wiped her face again and hurried off. Leaving the single dad standing there with a knot in his stomach, he dropped off the form and left the school. But he could not stop thinking about her. The way she cried. The way she said she did not like going home. He knew that feeling too well. After his wife passed away, home had not felt warm for a long time. He and his daughter had learned to find their own kind of peace, but it had taken time. And this girl looked like she had no peace at all. The next morning, he watched for her again. She arrived alone, walking through the gate with her head down. No parent with her. No lunch bag in her hands. Just a small backpack that looked too heavy for her thin shoulders. He walked past her as if he was just heading to his car. Then he stopped. "Good morning," he said with a kind smile. She looked surprised. "Good morning. It's cold today," he said. "That sweater looks thin." She nodded, hugging her arms. He took off his own light jacket and held it out. "You can use this for now?" Her eyes went wide. "No, I can't." "It's okay," he said. "I'll get it back later. I just don't want you to be cold." She hesitated, then slowly took it. It was too big for her, but she wrapped it around herself. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled and walked away, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. But inside, his heart felt both warm and worried at the same time. Over the next few days, he noticed more small things. She was always last in line for lunch. Sometimes she did not eat at all. During pickup time, most kids ran to their parents, but she always waited until the very end. Some days, no one came for a long time. Once, he saw her sitting on the steps outside the school, long after most children had gone. She was staring at the street, waiting. When someone finally arrived, it was an older neighbor, not a parent. People around her did not seem to notice. Or maybe they did, but did not think it was their place to care. But the single dad noticed everything. One afternoon, his daughter came home and said, "There's a girl in my class who never talks. She looks sad." His heart skipped. "Does she?" "Yeah," his daughter said. "Some kids laugh at her because her clothes are old. I told them to stop." He hugged his daughter tightly. He felt proud, but also more worried about the girl. That night he could not sleep. He kept seeing her face in his mind. The tired eyes, the quiet tears, the small voice saying she did not like going home. He knew he could not just forget her. He did not know what he would do yet. He only knew that a child was hurting, and he had seen it. And once you truly see someone's pain, it is hard to turn away. The next day, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would find a way to help her, even if it was only a little. Even if no one else noticed. And that promise would soon change everything. From that day forward, the single dad found himself paying closer attention to the girl. It was not easy. He had his own work to do, bills to pay, and a child to care for. Yet every morning and every afternoon, he found little ways to notice her, to understand her, without intruding. He did not want to scare her or make her feel embarrassed. He simply wanted to see if there was any way to make her life a little lighter. He began to notice small details. The way she held her lunch tray, slowly picking at the food. The way her backpack always looked heavy, even though she was so small. The way she avoided eye contact when teachers spoke to her. The more he observed, the more he realized that her struggle went beyond shyness. She was carrying something heavy that no child should carry. One afternoon, he waited by the playground after school. He saw her sitting quietly on a swing, moving slowly back and forth. Other children ran around laughing, but she stayed in her own little world. He approached carefully and sat on the swing next to her. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm glad you're here." She looked up at him with surprise, then quickly looked away. "Hi," she mumbled. He noticed the small scuff marks on her shoes, the dirt on her knees, the way her hands trembled slightly when she held on to the swing chains. He realized she was not just tired, she was worn down by something deeper. "Do you like to swing?" he asked. She shrugged. "Sometimes." He waited a few moments, letting her speak if she wanted. When she didn't, he spoke softly. "You know, sometimes when I was a kid, I liked to swing when I felt upset. It helped me feel a little lighter." She looked at him again, this time for a longer moment. There was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "I can see you have a lot on your mind," he said. "I don't know exactly what it is, but I can tell it's heavy." She shook her head quickly. "No, it's nothing," he nodded. "That's okay. You don't have to tell me. Sometimes just being here is enough." They sat in silence for a while. The wind was chilly, and he noticed her shivering slightly. Without saying a word, he took off his jacket and draped it over her small shoulders. She hesitated, then accepted it, and he felt a small sense of relief that she had not rejected his gesture. Over the next few weeks, he kept an eye on her. He noticed she often stayed behind after class, lingering while the other kids ran off. One day, he saw her sitting at a desk with her head down, scribbling on a piece of paper. He recognized the intensity of her focus, like she was pouring out her thoughts quietly. Privately, curiosity got the better of him, but he did not intrude. Instead, he waited, observing from a distance. He realized she was drawing pictures of her home. He could see the walls were bare, the rooms empty in her sketches. He saw figures in her drawings, small and hunched, looking tired or sad. It became clear to him that she was living in a difficult situation at home. She was carrying responsibilities no child should carry, and no one at school seemed to notice. The teachers were busy, the parents were busy, and the world moved around her while she struggled quietly. He felt a deep urge to do something, but he did not know what. He did not want to assume, and he did not want to scare her away. He decided to start small, offering simple kindness in ways she could accept without feeling embarrassed. He began leaving small snacks in her classroom. When the teacher was not looking, an extra sandwich, a small juice, a piece of fruit. He did it quietly, anonymously at first, hoping to see her eat something without anyone judging her. The first time she found the snack, she froze. Her eyes widened and she looked around nervously. When she saw no one else, she whispered, Who did this?" He was hiding behind a column, watching her reaction. She picked up the snack carefully, almost reverently, and ate it slowly. That small moment was like a spark. He realized that small acts of care could make a difference. He also began paying attention to her schoolwork. He noticed that she had difficulty with reading aloud, and that her handwriting was messy. Not because she lacked effort, but because she was tired and distracted. He quietly talked to her teachers and found ways she could get extra help without making it seem like she was being singled out at home. He thought about how he could make a more lasting impact. He began saving small amounts from his paycheck, just enough to buy her some school supplies, a warm jacket for winter, or a small backpack that was not torn and heavy. He did not make a big show of it because he did not want her to feel ashamed. One day, he saw her at the playground again, sitting alone on the swings. He walked up and sat beside her. "I brought something for you," said softly, handing her a small, neatly wrapped package. She looked at him suspiciously. "Why? Why are you giving me this?" "Because everyone deserves a little kindness," he said simply. "No reason other than that." She opened it slowly and found a new notebook and a set of colored pencils inside. Her eyes widened. She looked at him and then away, unsure what to say. "Thank you," she whispered finally. "You're welcome," he said, smiling gently. "Use them for whatever you want. You can draw, you can write, you can do whatever makes you happy." For the first time, he saw a small light in her eyes. Not joy yet, but something softer. A sense that maybe, just maybe, someone noticed her and cared. He also began listening more carefully to the little things she said. One afternoon, she mentioned that her parent was sick and that she had to stay home sometimes to help. She said it quietly, almost as if she was afraid someone would hear and think she was a burden. He felt a surge of empathy. He knew what it was like to struggle alone, to feel like no one could help. He realized that her burden at home was far greater than anyone could imagine. It explained why she seemed so tired and quiet at school. He wanted to do more, but he knew he had to be careful. He could not just take over her life or make her feel dependent. He needed to offer support in a way that respected her dignity, that made her feel safe rather than embarrassed. So he started small, consistent actions, extra snacks, small gifts, quiet encouragement, listening without judgment. He also made sure to check in with her teachers, making sure they noticed her too. Quietly suggested ways to help without drawing attention to her difficulties. Over time, he noticed small changes. She smiled slightly more often. She spoke in a low voice when he approached, but at least she spoke. She began to accept his gestures without hesitation. That was progress. The single dad realized that real help was not just giving food or supplies. It was presence. It was noticing the details that no one else saw. It was showing without pressure or expectation that someone cared, and he was willing to be that person, even though it took effort and patience. He also shared some of his experiences with his own daughter in small ways, without revealing too much. He taught her empathy and kindness by example, showing her that noticing someone else's pain and helping quietly could change a life. He began imagining what it would take to make a bigger difference in her life. He did not want to just give snacks or supplies. He wanted her to feel safe, supported, and valued. He wanted her to know that the world could be kind, even if her home life was difficult. For now, he continued the small, steady acts of care. He did not know what the future held, but he knew he had to keep noticing, keep supporting, and keep believing that even small gestures could grow into something life-changing. And slowly, Over weeks and months, she began to trust him. Not fully yet, but enough to accept his quiet kindness. And for the single dad, that trust was enough to know that his efforts mattered, and that he was on the path to helping a child who desperately needed someone to see her pain. The single dad realized that small gestures could only go so far. She needed more than snacks, notebooks, and quiet encouragement. She needed someone to step in, someone willing to do more than just notice her pain. But stepping in was not easy. He had to find a way to help without embarrassing her or making her feel like she was being pitied. One morning, he arrived at the school a little earlier than usual. He watched her come through the gate, as she did every day, alone. Her backpack seemed heavier than ever, and she moved with a slow, tired gait, as if the weight of her home life pressed on her shoulders. He walked beside her for a moment. "Hey," he said softly. "How's today?" She looked up briefly. "Fine," she said quietly. He knew she was not fine. He had learned to read the small signs, the dullness in her eyes, the slouch of her shoulders, the way she carried herself as if she were invisible. After dropping off his daughter, he stayed behind. He wanted to see if there was a way he could help without overstepping. That day he noticed her in the cafeteria. She sat at a small table, quietly eating her lunch alone. Most of the other children were laughing and talking in groups. He could see that some of them occasionally glanced at her, but no one came to sit with her. He felt a surge of determination. He decided that today, he would take a small step toward a bigger action. He approached the cafeteria staff quietly and asked if it would be okay to help provide lunch for her. They agreed, thinking he just wanted to contribute in a small way. The next day, when she came to the cafeteria, there was a tray of food set aside for her, more than just a small snack. She froze when she saw it, unsure what to do. He stayed a few steps away, watching carefully. "Someone thought you might like a little extra today," said gently. Her eyes widened. "For me?" "Yes," he said. "No one should go hungry if they don't have to." She hesitated, then slowly started eating. The relief in her small movements was visible. She ate a little faster, quietly, like a child who had been starving and finally had something nourishing. He could see the tension in her body start to ease just slightly. Over the next few days, he began to take more active steps. He talked to the school counselor, someone he had met at a parent meeting. He explained, without revealing too much personal information, that he had noticed a child who might be struggling and could use some quiet support. The counselor was grateful for the insight and began checking in on the girl more frequently. At the same time, he continued to bring small gifts: warm jackets, school supplies, and sometimes even a pair of shoes. He made sure everything was simple and not flashy, just practical items she could use. He learned quickly that it was not about showing off kindness, but about giving her stability in small, meaningful ways. One afternoon, he saw her struggling with homework in the library. She was trying to write a report, but seemed exhausted and frustrated. He walked over slowly. "Do you need a hand?" he asked quietly. She looked up at him, startled. "I don't want to bother you," she said. "You're not bothering me," he said. "I just want to help. You don't have to do it alone." He sat beside her and helped her organize her thoughts. He asked gentle questions, guided her through sentences, and encouraged her to write her ideas down. Slowly, her posture straightened and her focus sharpened. He saw the spark of confidence returning, even if just a little. When she finished, she looked at him with a small smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "You're welcome," he said. "You're doing great." That evening, he thought about how much more he could do. He knew she needed someone she could count on outside of school as well. He wanted to reach her family, but he knew he had to be careful. He did not want to make her feel embarrassed or judged. Instead, he began looking for ways to quietly offer help, finding community programs that could assist families in need, food banks that provided extra support, and tutoring programs that could help her with schoolwork one day. He learned that she was often staying home from school because she had to care for a sick parent. She was responsible for tasks no child should be responsible for: cooking, cleaning, and making sure everything at home ran smoothly while still keeping up with her studies. The more he learned, the more he realized the depth of her struggle. he decided it was time to step up in a way that would truly make a difference. He began setting aside part of his weekend to visit her after school, bringing small packages of food and school supplies, and sitting with her while she worked on her homework. At first, she was hesitant, unsure of his intentions, but slowly she began to trust him. She realized he was there to support her, not judge her, not fix her life, to be present when she needed it. His daughter noticed too. She would sometimes ask questions about the girl and her situation. The single dad used these moments to teach empathy and compassion, explaining that some people needed extra care and that even small actions could change someone's day. As weeks passed, the girl's demeanor began to change just slightly. She smiled a little more. She looked up when someone spoke to her. She began answering questions in class, even if softly. It was not a dramatic change, but it was enough to show that the small, steady support was working. Encouraged by this progress, the single dad decided to take an even braver step. He began speaking with other parents quietly, gauging if anyone could help in small ways. He did not want to make the girl feel singled out, so he approached it carefully, framing it as a general effort to support students in need. Slowly, he found a few willing parents who could lend a hand with tutoring or donating supplies one day. He noticed her standing alone near the playground during recess. Some older kids were teasing her about her worn clothes. Most children laughed, but she looked down, silent and small. He walked over without hesitation. "Hey," he said firmly, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to listen to that. You're stronger than they know." The kids hesitated, unsure of what to do. They were not used to adults stepping in so directly. The single dad stayed calm but firm, showing that he was there to protect her, not just comfort her. Slowly the teasing stopped, and she walked away, looking up at him with relief and gratitude. It was moments like these that reinforced his resolve. He realized that helping her required courage not just for him, but for her as well. She had to learn to accept support and protection, to trust someone outside of her immediate struggles. And that was a challenge, because her life had taught her to rely on no one. One evening, after helping her with homework, he walked her to the gate. She paused and looked up at him. "Why do you help me?" she asked quietly. He smiled softly. "Because I can. Because everyone deserves a little help sometimes. And because I want you to know that someone sees you." Her eyes filled with tears. But this time they were not just sadness, they were relief. A small flicker of hope. From that moment on, he continued his efforts, building trust step by step. He organized small tutoring sessions, brought warm meals, and quietly advocated for her within the school system. He did all of this without drawing attention to himself. Letting her dignity remain intact, the single dad knew this was only the beginning. He had seen a child carrying a weight too heavy for her age, and he had decided to be the one to help. It was not easy. There were long days, moments of doubt, and times when he felt overwhelmed. But every small success, the smile, the answered question, trusted reminded him why he had chosen to act. He also realized that helping her was changing him as well. It made him more patient, more aware, and more determined to show his own daughter the meaning of true kindness. By now, the girl was slowly learning that she was not alone. She could depend on him for support, and that knowledge alone gave her a little more strength to face her daily struggles. It was not a cure-all, not a sudden miracle. But it was progress, and it was exactly what the single dad had hoped for. Small, brave steps toward giving a child the care and attention she deserved. Even in a world that often overlooked her, the single dad knew that the girl needed more than quiet support and small gestures. She was still living in a home that was unstable, and her struggles at school were only part of the problem. He had spent weeks building trust and understanding. But now he realized it was time to step forward in a way that could truly change her life. One morning, he arrived at the school and saw her standing alone near the fence, her backpack slung unevenly over her shoulder. The other children were already running toward their friends, laughing and shouting. She did not look up. Her movements were slow, heavy, weighed down by responsibilities no child should bear. He approached her slowly. keeping his voice calm and gentle. "Good morning," he said. "How are you today?" She looked at him briefly. "I'm okay," she whispered. He could tell she was not okay, but he did not push her. Instead, he walked beside her for a few steps, talking about simple things, what they might see on the way into school. A bird on a branch, the cold air that nipped at their cheeks. He wanted her to feel safe and grounded before the day began. After dropping off his own daughter, he stayed behind to speak with the school counselor again. He had been quietly gathering information about resources that could help her family. He had researched community programs, local charities, and food assistance programs that could provide some relief. Today, he decided it was time to act, not just prepare. He met with the principal in private and explained the situation as carefully as he could. He described what he had observed: the girl's worn clothes, the way she often came to school hungry, the responsibilities she carried at home, and the signs of emotional strain. "I don't want to embarrass her or make her feel singled out," he said. "I just want to make sure she has the support she needs. She's a bright child, but she's carrying a heavy load for her age." The principal listened, surprised by the level of detail and concern. "I had noticed she was quiet and withdrawn," the principal admitted, "but I didn't realize the extent. What do you suggest?" The single dad took a deep breath. "I think she needs more than what the school can provide day to day. She needs stability, someone to help her with her homework, food, and maybe even guidance at home. I can help with that, and I've found some local programs that could assist. But we need to act quickly." The principal nodded slowly. "If you're willing to take responsibility for this, I'll support you. We can involve the counselor and social services to make sure she is safe and supported." It was a moment that felt heavy and important. The single dad agreed, knowing that this step would change both their lives forever. That afternoon, he went to her classroom quietly and asked the teacher if he could speak to her for a moment. She looked nervous but curious. "Hi," he said gently. "Would you like to come with me for a little while?" She hesitated. Where would we go?" "Somewhere quiet," he said. "Somewhere you can feel safe." She looked uncertain but nodded slowly. He guided her to a nearby room, empty except for a few chairs and a table. He pulled out a small package he had brought: a warm coat, extra school supplies, and a few snacks. "These are for you," he said softly. "No one should have to struggle alone. I just want to help you feel a little safer." Her eyes widened. She looked at the items, then back at him. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "You can," he said gently. "I just want to help. You don't have to explain anything. Just take it for now." She hesitated, then slowly accepted the package. She looked down at it, clutching it close. "Thank you," she said softly. He smiled, keeping his voice calm. "You're welcome. You're strong, and you deserve support." From that moment on, he began spending more time with her outside of school. He visited her home occasionally, always quietly and respectfully. He helped with homework, prepared meals, and sometimes just sat with her while she completed her chores. His presence became a source of stability she had never experienced before. At school, he continued to work with the principal and counselor. Together, they arranged for extra tutoring sessions, access to food programs, and safe transportation when needed. Teachers were informed quietly, so she did not feel singled out. One day, he saw her being teased by a group of children. Without hesitation, he approached and stood firmly beside her. "Leave her alone," said calmly but firmly. The children looked startled. No one had ever spoken so directly before. They backed away, unsure of what to do. She looked up at him with wide eyes, a mix of relief and surprise. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he said. No one should ever feel unsafe. His actions began to draw attention from others in the school and community. Some were shocked that a single father would go so far for a child who was not his own. Others were inspired by his courage and empathy. Slowly, more people began to notice the girl's struggles and offer support in small ways. The single dad also began coordinating with local community organizations. He connected her family to resources that could help with medical care, food, and basic household needs. He worked quietly behind the scenes, never seeking recognition. only aiming to create a stable environment for her. One evening, after helping her with homework and preparing a simple dinner, he walked her to the gate. "Do you feel a little safer now?" he asked. She looked up at him, a small smile forming. "Yes," she whispered. "A little, that's good," he said. "I'm always here if you need help." She nodded, clutching her small backpack. I think I can do better in school now." "You already are," he said softly. "Just keep trying, and remember, you're not alone." Over the following weeks, the girl began to show small but significant changes. She smiled more often, answered questions in class, and even shared small moments with her peers. The single dad knew that real transformation took time, but he was encouraged by every tiny step forward. He also realized that his actions were inspiring others. Teachers began noticing her strengths rather than just her struggles. Parents volunteered to help with tutoring and meals. The community slowly became more aware of the quiet hardships children faced, and some were motivated to offer their own support. The single dad's bold actions, stepping in publicly, offering resources and being a constant present, shocked many, but also created a ripple effect. People began to understand that one person's courage could spark change, not only in a child's life but in the entire community. For him, it was never about recognition. It was about seeing a child's pain and refusing to ignore it. He understood that sometimes the world overlooks those who are struggling, but even small acts of bravery and care can make a lasting difference. By the end of the term, the girl's life had started to change. She had access to food, support at home, help with schoolwork, and someone who genuinely cared for her well-being. The single dad continued his efforts quietly, knowing that the real work was ongoing, and that true change came not from one act, but from steady, compassionate support over time. Through it all, he never sought praise or attention. He simply saw a child in pain and acted. And in doing so, he began to transform her world, showing her, and everyone who witnessed it, that kindness, courage, and determination can change a life in ways that shock and inspire everyone around. Time passed, and the girl's life began to change in ways that no one could have imagined when she first walked into the school quietly, head down, carrying her invisible burdens. The single dad continued his quiet, steady support, never asking for recognition, only caring about her well-being. Slowly, her small victories added up, creating a ripple effect that touched everyone around her. At school, she began to participate more in class. She would raise her hand when she knew the answer, even if her voice was soft. The teachers noticed the change and quietly praised her for her effort, never pointing out that she had struggled before. She began to make small friends. Children who had once ignored her or overlooked her presence now, including her in games and conversations. Each smile, each shared laugh, was a new step forward, a sign that she was learning to trust the world again. Her home life, while still challenging, began to feel a little lighter. The single dad had connected her family with local resources that provided meals, supplies, and occasional medical help. While he did not solve every problem, his consistent support made a tangible difference. He showed up not as a rescuer, but as someone who could quietly help her navigate the challenges she faced. She began to come home from school and find a small meal ready, homework help waiting, or just someone to listen to her without judgment. For the first time in her life, she did not feel completely alone. One day, single dad noticed that she had brought a drawing to school. It was a picture of herself, her home, and him standing nearby, smiling. Her hands had drawn him gently, like he was a guardian watching over her. When he saw it, his chest tightened. He realized that these small, patient acts of care had left a mark on her young heart. She had begun to feel safe enough to imagine a world where someone cared for her without expecting anything in return. The principal, teachers, and even some parents began to notice the transformation. They were surprised that a single father, already carrying the responsibilities of raising his own child, had gone to such lengths for a child who was not his own. Some were inspired, realizing that it only took courage and kindness to create real change. Others admitted that they had overlooked her struggles and seeing her slowly thrive made them reflect on how many other children might be quietly suffering. The girl herself began to understand the value of trust. She had learned that it was okay to rely on someone, to ask for help when needed, and to believe that not every adult in her life would let her down. She no longer hesitated to speak up in class, no longer flinched when someone approached her. The small, steady support from the single dad had given her confidence she had never experienced before. One afternoon, while they were walking home together after school, she spoke quietly, almost as if testing the words. Do you really care about me?" she asked. He stopped and looked at her gently. "Of course I do," he said. "I care about every child who needs someone to see them. And I've seen you. I've seen how hard you've worked, how strong you are, and how much you deserve support." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not sadness or fear. They were relief. She had felt invisible for so long, and now she finally felt seen. "You've helped me so much," she whispered. "You've helped yourself too," he said softly. "You've kept going even when things were hard. You've been brave every day." Her small smile that day was different from before. It was a smile that carried hope, resilience, and a quiet confidence. It was the kind of smile that could not be forced, only earned through small victories and the knowledge that someone genuinely cared. As months went by, the single dad continued to support her quietly. But he also realized that his efforts had inspired the community. Teachers began looking more closely at other children who struggled quietly. Parents began to offer help in small, meaningful ways. The school became more aware that a little attention, kindness, patience could transform a child's life. The girl's family also began to stabilize. They received support that helped reduce their daily struggles. The house, once filled with tension and worry, felt lighter. She could focus more on school and less on the heavy responsibilities that had weighed her down. She began to dream against small dreams at first, like finishing a book, learning to draw better, or joining a school club. But those small dreams were important. They were signs that she believed in the possibility of a better future. One evening, after finishing homework, she handed the single dad a small envelope. He looked at it curiously. Inside was a handwritten note and a drawing of the two of them standing outside the school, smiling. The note said simply, "Thank you for never giving up on me. You changed my life." He felt his chest tighten. He had never done it for praise or recognition, but seeing the impact of his actions in her own words was overwhelming. He realized that sometimes the quiet, steady acts of kindness are the ones that leave the deepest marks. From that point on, the girl's life continued to improve steadily. She excelled in schoolwork she had once struggled with. She joined a small after-school club and made friends who respected and supported her. She began speaking up for herself, asking for help when needed, and sharing her own kindness with others in small ways. The lessons she had learned from the single dad, patience, trust, and courage became part of who she was. The single dad himself found a new sense of fulfillment. Helping her had not been easy. It required patience, courage, and sometimes sacrifice. There were long days when he was tired, when he worried about whether he was doing enough, when the weight of his own life pressed on him. But seeing her slowly thrive, knowing that he had made a difference in a life that might have been overlooked forever, made all the challenges worthwhile. Word of his selfless actions eventually spread quietly through the school and local community. People spoke of him with admiration, not because he sought recognition, but because his actions had demonstrated the true meaning of compassion and courage. Parents and teachers realized that one person's willingness to act could inspire a chain reaction of kindness that affected far more lives than just the child he helped. Years later, the girl, now older, would look back on this time as the turning point in her life. She would remember the single dad who had noticed her pain when everyone else had looked away, who had quietly given his time, resources, and heart without expecting anything in return. His actions had not only given her stability and care, but had taught her how to trust, how to hope, and how to believe in the goodness of people. She began to carry forward the lessons she had learned. She became a source of support for others who struggled quietly, showing kindness in small, meaningful ways. And in doing so, she honored the gift that the single dad had given her, not just help, but hope, dignity, and the knowledge that even one person's courage can change a life forever. The single dad, looking back, never saw himself as a hero. He simply saw a child who needed someone, and he chose to be that person. In the end, his courage, empathy, and persistence had transformed a life and inspired a community. He had shown that true kindness is not measured by grand gestures, but by steady, patient care, and the willingness to see and act upon the pain of others. And in that quiet, patient human way, he had changed the course of a life, reminding everyone that even in a world that often overlooks the suffering of the smallest and quietest, one person's heart and actions can shine like a beacon, guiding a child toward a future filled with hope, courage, and possibility. The girl's eyes now sparkled with confidence. She walked through the school gates with her head held high, carrying not just her backpack, but the lessons of kindness, trust, and bravery. And somewhere in the crowd, the single dad smiled quietly to himself, knowing that his decision to act, to care, and to never ignore her pain had changed everything for her, for himself, and for everyone who witnessed it. Her life was no longer defined by the struggles she faced alone. It was defined by the courage of a single dad who had refused to turn away, by the small, steady acts of care that had built a foundation of hope, and by the realization that even one person's kindness can echo through a lifetime, and that, he knew, was the true power of human compassion.